Colorado Governor Jared Polis says Denver's mounting migrant crisis doesn't warrant a state of emergency. He's rejecting calls to activate the National Guard and sending civilians to help out instead. A local porta potty supplier is about to be flush with cash. A multi-million-dollar investment in honey buckets could make life a little sweeter for anyone who's gotta go. But one city council member says it doesn't go far enough.
I think there's a lot more that we can do, but it's certainly a start.
The governor's so-called property tax relief measure could overhaul the state's tax system for the next decade. We'll do our best to explain it in 90 seconds. And Frontier Airlines made headlines this weekend for a historic workers' rights settlement. One problem. Kind of like their customer service phone line, that settlement is also non-existent. All that and more tonight on Next. The city of Denver is so overwhelmed by the recent surge of migrants arriving here, it asked the governor to call in the National Guard. The state promptly denied that request. Instead of sending soldiers to help process new arrivals and work in shelters, the governor sent in 40 civilians to help. The recent surge of migrants showing up in Denver is unlike anything that we've seen since the city started tracking arrivals from the southern border last December. Local nonprofits are currently straining to provide temporary shelter to 2,500 migrants. And new arrivals aren't slowing down. More than 300 people arrived yesterday alone. In the meantime, the city is buying migrants tickets to other cities and shortening shelter stays for many of those who stay in town. Starting this Thursday, adults without kids can stay in a shelter for just 2 weeks, down from the previous 3-week limit. But migrant families with children are getting more time. They'll be allowed to stay up to 37 days. That's up from 30 days before. So why not call in the National Guard? Governor's office says that's only possible if a state of emergency is issued. And right now, there is no state of emergency in Colorado. And Governor Polis says that he has no intention to issue one. That means no National Guard. Mayor Mike Johnston told us last week that the city hasn't reopened any facilities like the rec center shelters that we've seen being used earlier this year. Not really clear at this point if there's a long-term plan to shelter migrants who are coming here. It doesn't matter if you have all the money in the world or nothing at all. When you gotta go, you gotta go. From public parks to homeless encampments and safe outdoor spaces, Denver is preparing to spend millions of dollars on porta potties. If you thought they're cheap, you're wrong. How much is a honey bucket worth? The city of Denver says up to $7 million over the next 3 years for all the porta potties you see around town. That's more than 7 times what the city planned to spend on portable bathrooms when the original budget came out back in June. Denver is using cell phone tracking to determine which parks need more places to, go. It's also expanding services at homeless encampments and safe outdoor spaces, providing services for the unhoused. That all costs a lot.
I think there's a lot more that we can do, but it's certainly a start.
Denver Councilwoman Chantel Lewis wants to see more.
There's just not enough talk about how people need better access to restrooms. And something that would actually solve the problem. I don't think it's an appropriate line to draw between the unhoused and people who need to pee, right? That's what we're talking about. And the number of well-off people who are left with little choice but to find an alley, right? After a night of partying and drinking or going out to dinner.
Sure, there's no running water, and sometimes you'd rather hold it than hold your breath inside. But Denver is shelling out the cash for honey buckets. You'll thank them the next time you need one. About $2 million of that $7 million budget was added to cover projected costs at encampments and safe outdoor spaces. The city started bathroom and trash services at homeless camps when Mayor Johnston took office. You might have noticed the federal government is still doing the absolute bare minimum today. Yes, it is open and it is functioning. Congress reached a short-term deal to avert a shutdown just before Saturday's midnight deadline, albeit with some holdouts, of course, in Colorado's delegation. No surprises here. Colorado's Republicans, Lauren Boebert and Ken Buck, voted no on the short-term spending bill, which keeps spending at current levels without any additional border security funding or military aid to Ukraine. Both Buck and Boebert have said they wanted to curb spending and pass 12 individual funding bills for specific agencies. The bill passed the House without their support, but faced some last-minute opposition in the Senate. Colorado Democrat Michael Bennet held up a Senate vote on the bill, but eventually dropped his opposition after Senate leadership said that they were committed to providing additional funding to Ukraine. Congress now has an extra 45 days to figure out a budget for the next year. House Republicans say they'll continue to work on 12 individual appropriations bills for each government agency. They've passed 4 so far, but those bills are filled with conservative policy demands like limiting abortion access and are unlikely to pass in the Senate. Another deadline came and went over the weekend. Contract between Kaiser Permanente and thousands of healthcare worker services expired at the end of September, but both sides say that they'll keep negotiating before a potential strike starts this week. About 3,000 healthcare workers in Colorado, including nurses, pharmacy techs, and medical assistants, say they'll go on a 3-day strike starting on Wednesday if they can't come to an agreement. The union is negotiating for higher salaries and improved recruitment. Kaiser says they've offered across-the-board pay increases and are working to recruit 10,000 new employees by the end of the year. Kaiser Permanente Colorado says patient care will continue in the event of a strike. They serve 500,000 members at 33 medical offices across the state. When you're asked about money on a ballot, it should be clear if you're being asked about more money or if it actually saves you money. Unfortunately, Proposition HH has more tentacles than an octopus. Luckily for us, politics guy Marshall Zellender only has 2 arms, but might end up doing 8 stories to try and make sense of all this.
The reviews are in, and the ballot issue about property taxes and your Tabor refund, Proposition HH, it might as well stand for holy heck. Gabrielle from Fort Collins emailed us and said, Prop HH is super complicated. Karen from Berthoud, I, along with many I know, are really struggling to understand HH. And Kip from Golden, the Blue Book qualifies as mind-numbing for the average person. The Blue Book takes 12 pages to explain HH. It's often the simplified explanation of what you're voting on. But this ballot issue would do so much, I'm going to need multiple stories to make sure you understand what these pages are telling you. Saying yes to HH would change the math that determines your property tax. If it passes, you will still see an increase in next year's property tax bill, just not as high of an increase. In return, the state gets to raise the limit on how much it can keep and spend each year, which would reduce future Tabor refunds. Also, lawmakers decided that only if you vote yes will Tabor refunds be sent out equally no matter how much you make. $898 for single taxpayers, double it if you file jointly. If Prop HH fails, Tabor refunds will be issued on your tax return based on your income level, meaning less for low-income earners and much more for high-income earners. Karen wanted an example of the impact Prop HH would have on a $500,000 home. The state has this calculator that helps give you 2 years' worth of estimates, but it requires you to type in your yearly income and home value. You have to pick your county, school district, and city for accurate property tax estimates. For simplicity, I'm going to pick Denver County and Denver Public Schools. Let's say you have a joint income of $100,000. Your Tabor refund goes down in the next 2 years, but you also save a bit on your property tax bills for a net benefit in your favor. Though I do want to point out, if HH passes, this shows your property tax still going up, just not as much as it would if it does not pass. Keeping the $500,000 home example, the more you make, let's say $200,000, the more the state benefits because you're giving up more Tabor refund than you're seeing on your property tax savings. The less you make, let's say $50,000, the more you benefit because of a greater Tabor refund. I know, it's lots of numbers. I'm trying to make this understandable. I also need to point out that if HH passes, Tabor refunds will continue to diminish or perhaps not exist because the state is allowed to keep more than it can currently. Renters have asked, what about us? Your impact is really the Tabor refund part. If you make less income, you might get more of a Tabor refund in the next 2 years. It's unclear after 2 years what it might mean for you. If you make high income, you will get fewer Tabor dollars in the next 2 years.
So first of all, on behalf of everybody who got their Blue Book in the mail this week and opened it up and said, what? Thank you.
I haven't earned the thank you yet, I don't think. Still.
Well, one of your first 8 stories, right? Second, let's say this doesn't pass. Let's do a hypothetical. It's not like the current value, the current law in place right now will stay in place for eternity. There's a chance that, you know, if this doesn't pass, there's something else that comes along down the road.
Right, and the Blue Book makes estimates based on if this fails, current law says this is how we determine your home's property tax. If you think that lawmakers wouldn't change that equation somehow, even if this fails, that's absurd. You know lawmakers will say, okay, this didn't work. We're going to do something else to try to lessen the impact. But the Blue Book estimates are only going off of current law. And so there is a bit of a scare tactic, I believe, that says, look, if you say no to this, it's going to skyrocket, as though lawmakers really aren't going to try to figure out another fix next year. My expertise says
they will try if this fails.
Kyle's Dawn, I'm changing politics guy to politics expert. Marshall's.
Oh, I'll take it.
Thank you. 2 new gun laws took effect in Colorado this weekend, which means, right on cue, gun lobbyists are already suing over one of them. As of yesterday, Colorado requires a 3-day waiting period for gun purchases. Another law that went into effect this weekend will make it easier to sue the firearm industry over gun violence. No Compromise's gun advocacy group, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, has already filed a federal lawsuit over the waiting period law, claiming it's a violation of the Second Amendment rights. They tried to sue earlier this year, but a federal judge rejected their claims because the law hadn't even gone into effect yet. Rocky Mountain Gun Owners has had some success pushing back against Colorado's gun laws this year. In August, a federal judge temporarily blocked a state law to raise the minimum purchase age for firearms. That legal challenge is still ongoing. We want to take a minute to thank you for your donations to the Family Center La Familia and their important work supporting Hispanic families in northern Colorado. Kyle's on the road, if you couldn't tell, with an update on this week's Word of Thanks.
Thank you so much for supporting the Family Center La Familia in Fort Collins through our latest Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign. You've raised nearly $9,000 to support their work on behalf of underserved families in the North College corridor there in Fort Collins. Together, we have raised more than $11 million for nonprofits across Colorado. If you have an idea of a group that could use our help, email me next@9news.com. I'll see you when I get back.
The feds are really hoping you didn't see the news about a historic workers' rights settlement with Frontier Airlines. Because guess what? That settlement hasn't happened yet.
I think that they're trying to get us to play outside more instead of having, just watching YouTube.
Oh yeah, they are. Nailed that one. Local elementary students got a new set of wheels today. The nonprofit behind the giveaway hopes it inspires them to head outdoors. That's next. Colorado Republicans keep trying and failing to exclude thousands of unaffiliated voters from their party primaries, even though a majority of party leadership is on board with the plan. As first reported by our partners at Colorado Politics, the state's GOP's Central Committee met this weekend to vote on a proposal to opt out of the primaries in favor of a caucus and assembly process where delegates pick the candidates. It's part of an ongoing effort to close the party primaries to registered Republicans only, since the GOP claims unaffiliated voters and Democrats are working together to sway elections. 65% of the committee supported the opt-out proposal, but state law requires 75% approval to sidestep the primaries. GOP is already suing over that law. If they're successful, nearly 2 million unaffiliated voters would be unable to cast a ballot in the Republican or Democratic primaries. Federal regulators announced on Friday they had reached a historic settlement with Denver-based Frontier Airlines, multiple female employees who claimed that the airline discriminated against them. Today, it looks like somebody just spoke too soon. Maybe you saw this news this weekend. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission settlement with Frontier would require the airline to better accommodate pregnant or lactating pilots. Turns out Frontier isn't ready to make accommodations to those female pilots just yet. We're told someone sent out the press release too soon, and in fact, there is no settlement yet. A lawyer for the EEOC told me on the phone today the snafu might actually hurt plans for the settlement. We reached out to Frontier today to see if they're still willing to make changes that would better accommodate pilots who are pregnant and breastfeeding. They wouldn't answer any of our questions. I want to turn to the weather now. Danielle Grant joining us. Danielle, it feels like summer, looks like fall, and please don't tell me that we have a storm coming.
I know, we have the rain. We are watching it move, and as we speak, we can even hear it in the studio. You can see the raindrops on our camera lens out there toward Coors Field and beyond, and on the radar tonight. Incredibly active snowfall up in the high country and a good round of rain rolling through downtown Denver. I just threw on the lightning tracker, more than 180 strikes in the past 15 minutes alone. Here in the city, some solid rain starting to roll in. Everything is tracking to the northeast, and it should be out of here within the next hour. The winds, they have been kicking up. That's helped to warm us up. We're actually at 85 this afternoon, but the winds, they are still impacting eastern Colorado, 20 to 30 mile per hour gusts out there. This cold front pushing in. It's going to eject off to the north and to the east, moving out tomorrow, but still it's going to be a cooler day around here. Temperatures dropping a good about 20 degrees. As we look ahead toward tonight, mostly cloudy skies here in Denver, still some lingering showers out there toward Fort Collins. Tomorrow morning, showers, snow showers up across the Central Mountains. Should be quiet here in the city with the clouds racing through, kind of in and out throughout the day. As the evening wears on, another weak little system just crossing the northern mountains. Tomorrow here in the city, high sitting in the mid to upper 60s. That's it. Yes, it will finally feel more like fall. Some 70s and 80s into southeastern Colorado and 40s and low 50s for highs up in the mountains. Storms will be isolated again on Wednesday, but we keep these cool temperatures through the work week, but the 70s and sunshine are back for the weekend.
Denver has got a new class of amateur skateboarders. Well, actually a couple of classes in an effort to get kids out of the house and onto the board. That's next. Denver's Castro Elementary temporarily turned into a skate park today. School partnered with the nonprofit Canned Aid to give 4th and 5th graders some new wheels today. It's all part of the nonprofit's Treads and Trails program, making sure underserved kids can access safe and healthy activities. Don't worry, helmets are included.
So I'm what's called a gig worker. So this would be a gig. Good morning. My name is John Lopez.
They lots of times have no idea what they're getting.
It's a surprise because we want you guys to be outside and active and healthy.
My favorite part is the look on the kids' faces when they first see, what they're getting. But even more so, seeing their excitement when they first try it out.
What we've seen from a lot of these giveaways is this is, the first time some of these kids will get a skateboard.
Thank you for for giving me a new board and giving us all a new board.
Now the bail's an emergency exit off of our skateboard.
Starting in the grass allows us to really slow everything down, focus on the basic fundamentals of kind of how we stand and push and ride on these things.
I think that they're trying to get us to play outside more instead of having just watching YouTube or other stuff, so we could get athletic and get our personality more stronger and our body more healthier.
When we're learning on our skateboards, failure is very much normalized in that, no one ever steps on a skateboard and can do something instantly or right away. And so through that process, you don't ever succeed, but when you don't succeed, it's not that you're failing, it's that you're learning.
What do you say?
Well, thank you guys.
I love all those helmets as well. If Canned Aid sounds familiar, it originated out of Lyons in Colorado during the floods in 2013. They're celebrating 10 years by giving back to the community. Coming up, your feedback. Thank you, Aaron. Yeah. That's next. The most Colorado thing that we saw today is a pricey way to show other drivers that you own a lawn care service. Kinda. Lou spotted this plate in Erie, short and sweet. Just, you see it on your screen there. It just says weed. One of several cannabis-themed plates that the state auctioned off last year to benefit the Colorado Disability Funding Committee. You could also make the argument that this is just gardening themed, that this is a gardener, a landscaper. The weed plate went for just under $3,800, but the real cash cow here, the 420 plate, went for $9,600. Let's get some feedback here really quickly. Sue Deb says, when will we set aside politics and find a realistic solution to migrant issues? Any ideas? City of Denver had a $40 million understanding and agreement that they were trying to pass through a couple months ago. That fell apart. If you got ideas, send them out.